Hi everyone, welcome to this lesson on Little Drummer Boy in an arrangement by Doyle Dykes. Before we start the lesson, I'd like to point out that only the first part will be released on YouTube. For full access, you can head over to my Patreon page or my brand new website. If you are looking for the tab and notation file, then do head over to the website and buy it through the music notes link there. No login or account is necessary. That way you'll get 20% off the regular price. All links are down below in the description. Little Drummer Boy is my latest attempt at giving you a Christmas song that you can get down between now and Christmas. And that isn't as easy as you think. The first time I ever posted a Christmas song, it was One Christmas Night by Tommy Emmanuel. I posted this in the weeks leading up to Christmas, and quite quickly the recurring comment was, if I can get this down by next Christmas, I'll be a happy man. The year after that, I wanted to give everyone a bit more time, so I dropped the first Christmas tune in October with me transcribing and practicing the song in September while we had still beautiful summer weather outside. But this year, I think I managed to find the perfect song in the form of a Doyle Dykes' arrangement of Little Drummer Boy. And I know the name Doyle Dykes can be as frightening as Tommy Emmanuel's. But there is no need to panic this time. Sure, Mr. Dykes is a formidable fingerstyle player who mixes Chet-style thumb pick work with a classical or almost flamenco-inspired picking technique. I've been itching to cover him here on the channel, and we will take a look at his more challenging work in the future. Because today is not that day. This is by far the easiest piece of music that I've ever seen him play. And if you can play any number of fingerstyle songs, then this one is also suited for you. Okay, Christmas is around the corner, so I better stop talking now. The guitar is in drop D tuning. I'm using my trusty old Martin with clear position markings as we will be moving up and down the neck quite a bit. I'm also using a thumb pick, but it's perfectly possible, at least this first part, to play it without a thumb pick as well. Let's dive straight into the intro and see what we're up against. Here we go. That's all, just one chord shape over and over again. Now, to be clear, Mr. Doyle Dykes does play a lengthy single note solo, but he is playing this tune on something similar to a Godin multi-act guitar. And those guitars, those nylon string guitars, have excellent upper fret access. I'm guessing for most of you that upper fret access is going to be a bit more tricky, so I have decided to skip that single note part altogether. So all we're doing is we're playing a D power chord, index finger, 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger, 3rd fret on the B string. And everything else is just the bass part. Open E string, which sounds like a D, but I will probably, throughout the entire tutorial, always refer to the low string as the E string, despite the fact that it sounds like a D now. So, low E string, G string and B string at the same time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the bass part. So after that low E string, you head over to the A string, then to the D string, and then back to the A string. Every single bass note is on the beat apart from the second one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe you can tell I'm really trying to play those bass notes softly, because otherwise that low D is going to overpower everything else. It's also possible to lightly mute. And whatever option you pick, you just play it 2 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Repick the chord and the same bass line. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is the whole intro. One more time without the muting, but the picking is the exact same thing. Keeping those bass notes quite soft. and then we head into the first verse. The verse is quite lengthy. Let me play through the whole first verse one time, and as always, the explanation follows on the other side. And straight into the interlude. Lots of repeating parts, and as you will see, the chord shapes aren't that bad either. You start with middle finger 3rd fret on the B string and the ring finger 4th fret on the D string. You play this together with the low open E string. 1, 2, same A string, and then as you head for the D string, you remove the ring finger for an open D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th beat is open A string, open G string, open E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You put down the index finger on the 2nd fret on the G string. You pluck that as the finger is already down on the string, and then you hammer on with the middle finger to the 2nd fret on the high E string. 1, 2. Again, the pick goes to the A string. We're basically playing that same bass note. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're trying to stick to that bass line as much as possible. So first beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the bass note, on the D string, you repick the G string and the high E string, and the same thing as you head back with the thumb pick to the A string. So just that second bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Back to the low E string, you remove those two fingers and you drop down the pinky on the 3rd fret on the high E string. You pick the low E string, G string, B string, and high E string at the same time. 1, back to the D chord, and then back to only the pinky, and you pick this together with the open D string. 1, 2, 1. And this is only a bar of 2. So up until now, each bar was a bar of 4. Now you have a half bar, a bar of only 2 counts. So if I count along from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the last 2 bars is just the bass line we already learned in the intro again. Those were the first, I should say, first 5 bars. It's 4 bars of 4 and then that 1 bar of 2 in between there. So technically it's 5 bars. Here we go. 1, 2, 1. Keep those bass notes soft. Then the next 5 bars is basically a variation on what you just played. You hold down that D chord. You're not going to use that 4th fret on the D string this time. And if your guitar has a lot of sustain, that D chord is still ringing out. And then you play open E string, 3rd fret on the B string, still holding down the D chord, open A string, and then the D string and the B string at the same time, still just holding down the chord shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you head to the A string, you remove the index finger and the middle finger, and again you play open A string, G string, open E string on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Same move as before, hammering on with the middle finger to the 2nd fret. while you already have the index finger down. 1, 2, 3, 4. A chord on each beat, always G string and high E string, and the bass note moves in between that. 1 chord, bass note on the A string, and then chord together with the D string, chord together with the A string. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So bars 3, 4, and 5, exactly the same thing. Let me play those 5 bars back to back. Then we move to an A chord, just an A power chord, open A string, index finger, 2nd fret on the D string, middle finger, 2nd fret on the G string. You play the chord and then you let go of the middle finger right away for an open G string and an open E string. 1, 2, 3, open A bass string in between there, and then you drop down a bar across the 2nd fret from the D string to the high E string, and again you play the G string and E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm keeping that bar down. I think Mr. Doyle Dykes moves to this fingering, just using the index finger on the high E string 3rd fret and the middle finger on the 4th fret on the G string. So again, power chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then on the first beat of the next bar, you repick the bass note as you slide up to the 5th fret on the high E string with the index finger, and to the middle finger, 6th fret on the G string. 1, 2, repick, 3, repick again with another bass note, and then hammer on the ring finger and the pinky to the 7th fret again on the G string and E string. So 1, 2, 3, 4, a bass note in front of the beat, and now we're going to move that same melody line down again. First, one more time, those 2 bars back to back, moving up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And it's just the exact same thing, just in reverse. 5th fret, 6th fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, and back to the 2nd fret on the G string and high E string. And this is where keeping down that bar comes in handy, as you just move down at the end and remove the middle finger. If you play these voicings, just separate fingers, then you move down and switch over to the index finger and the middle finger. One more time, that full section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. Again, half a bar, just 2 counts. Now Mr. Dykes goes for an A chord, but he plays it like this: middle finger, index finger, ring finger. And in a second, you're going to remove the index finger in between there. It's also possible like this, but I do have to agree, this just feels a little bit more efficient in switching down to this new chord shape. The A chord, first beat, A string, B string, high E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that sounds familiar. It's just the same bass pattern moved up 1 string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. An arpeggio in 8th notes, A string, D string, G string, D string, and then with the pinky a quick pull off from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret. G string, open B string, removing the ring finger, and back to the G string, 2nd fret. So just that last bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then you're going to end up on an A dominant chord, same chord shape, only removing the index finger and playing an open G string. That full section, those first 5 bars on the A chord. to the A dominant chord, and then the next 4 to 5 bars again is just moving up the neck, starting from the A dominant chord, open A string, open G string, 2nd fret on the B string, 1, 2, open E string. Sometimes Mr. Dykes plays this with the G string included as well, 1, 2, back to the A string, and then dropping down a full bar again. At least in my case, sorry, before I get ahead of myself, I'm using a full bar. Mr. Dykes is dropping both the index finger on the 2nd fret on the G string and the pinky on the 2nd fret on the high E string, which means all 4 fingers, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky, on the 2nd fret on the D string, G string, B string, E string. I think that just switching to a bar is easier. You can prove me wrong if you want to, but that is how I'm going to play it. So A dominant chord, 1, 2, 3, G string and high E string at the same time, bass note on the D string, and then 3rd fret, middle finger on the high E string, another bass note, and then moving into a big D chord. Index finger, 2nd fret on the G string, middle finger, 3rd fret on the B string, pinky, 5th fret on the high E string, and the ring finger, 4th fret on the D string. You're going to pick the E string, G string, B string, and high E string at the same time. 1 to the D string, repick the chord to the D string, and then as you head to the low D string, you remove the ring finger. Repick the low E string and the top strings, 3, and to an open D string, and that open D string masks your transition to a small bar on the 7th fret across the G string, B string, and high E string. That's the 4th beat, 4, and another open D string bass note. Section on the D chord, 1, 2, remove the ring finger, 4, 1, 2, small chord shape moving down. You keep to that little bar on the 7th fret and you hammer on the G string, the ring finger to the 9th fret, and on the high E string, the middle finger to the 8th fret, while rolling across the chord, starting on the low E string. So you're rolling, then hammering on, immediately removing those 2 fingers again, just to the bar, and then dropping down the bar to the 5th fret and adding the pinky or the ring finger on the 7th fret for a D dominant sound. Now I have to be honest, that pinky, putting down that pinky there really quickly is tricky, and I do have to say it sounds fine if you just play a bar at the 5th fret as well. Then you get a D dominant 9 sound instead of a D dominant 7 sound. So if that move down to the pinky is giving you trouble, then you can also play just to the bar and then move down to the next chord. Now that next chord is a G chord, and it's quite possible for so many people they are very used to hearing a full G chord here, but Mr. Dykes is sticking to a low D string in the bass. So you get a small small G triad on top, middle finger, 4th fret, and then index finger, a small bar across the B string and high E string on the 3rd fret. If you really want that big G sound, even just for a second, then you add the ring finger to the 5th fret on the low E string, and then it will sound like that big G chord that everybody is expecting. So either you get this, 1, 2, 1, to the G chord with the D down below in the bass, or to the full G chord. And that might be a bit more what people are expecting in this section. So this is something that you can pick and choose which way you're going. If you're holding down that G bass note, you're only going to hold it down really briefly. I'm going to stick to the open E string as Mr. Dykes is doing. G triad on top of that D bass note, an open D bass string, and then you move up a small D chord shape. I'm going to play this like this. Index finger 7th fret, ring finger 8th fret, middle finger 7th fret on the G string, B string and E string. Then moving down to F sharp minor, middle finger 6th fret, G string, ring finger 7th fret, B string, index finger 5th fret on the high E string. And this is going to move down 2 more frets to E minor. So I'm going to play this. And then ending back up on a D chord, just 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 2nd fret. Now Mr. Dykes plays this. He uses this fingering. I think he even uses the pinky, and he slides up with the index finger behind the middle finger to the 7th fret. So starting on the 6th fret, and this makes the next transition into the minor chord a lot easier. So that's an option as well. So you can slide that chord shape as I'm using as well, but then you have to do the entire chord shape. 1, 2, to the D chord, or Mr. Dykes' original fingering, and moving down to the D chord. Whatever option you pick, you then move back up to the F sharp chord. Now Mr. Dykes is playing it middle finger, ring finger, index finger, because he's adding the pinky to the 7th fret on the high E string, and just playing a really quick melodic embellishment, a quick pull off on top. Back to the E minor chord, back to the D chord, and then landing on an A chord again. So that full section moving down, starting with that quick hammer on to that D dominant chord. And I almost forgot, the picking pattern is on the 1st chord. You always add a low E string bass note, D string, bass note, D string, bass note on the A string now. And then as you end up on that A chord, you launch immediately into the same 8th note arpeggio you learned before, with only a small difference all the way at the end, the same pull off from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret, G string, open B string, 2nd fret on the B string, and moving back into the very first chord shape you played in the beginning of the verse. That full section all the way moving down, including the A chord. Full section starting on the A chord, the A dominant chord. Here we go. And then you end up in basically the exact same thing as the first 5 bars. Only the last 2 beats, and that's the only thing that changes compared to the first 5 bars. Then the last 2 beats is open G string, index finger, 2nd fret on the high E string, and really quickly pulling off to an open E string, then 3rd fret, 4th fret in the same spot we used before, B string and the D string, and back to the open G string and E string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, ending up on the same D power chord. I'm keeping down the ring finger as well. That doesn't really have to happen. You can just go for the D power chord. That was the full first verse. Let me play those last 5 bars one more time. Into the power chord leading into the interlude. Rest assured, there is almost no new material in the second verse. I'm going to show you how to increase the intensity. If you decide not to do that, then make sure that you check out the ending in the second part of the tutorial. That is the only real piece of new information there. Everything else is already known material by now. Let me try and play through the whole first verse slowly. I'm going to add the magnet on the guitar as well, giving you a good look at the picking hand too. Here we go. And that was the full first verse. That concludes the first part of the lesson as well. So you can now play the entire tune for your family. And in the second part, I'm going to show you how to increase the intensity as well as how to land this tune with a beautiful lick Doyle Dykes made up especially for this tune. I'll see you there.